Thank you. Thanks for inviting me back again. I'm absolutely rapt to see that this club has really taken off. And I think all of you deserve to congratulate yourselves about how well you've done. Because I can tell you there's no other group in Melbourne like this and no other group in Australia is so active and achieving so much. When I gave you a talk a year or so ago, I asked or raised the question about brain health, and you're going to be ambassadors about that, talking about the brain to other people and enhancing the health of the brain. Well, you're going to add to your ambassadorship tonight because you're going to start talking about the mood disorders. The mood disorders have been with us ever since man began. And unfortunately, they're becoming more common and having an earlier age of onset. They're a degree a challenge to us all. They're a challenge to the sufferer who loses esteem and purpose for life. Because of the disability, they're a challenge to the society in terms of the economic costs. They're also a challenge to the carer and the treater as we usher them through their illness to wellness. But above all, the biggest challenge for all of us tonight is to take away the notion that the word mood means more than mood, it means life. Mood affects what we get out of life, and increasingly it's been shown to also affect longevity. One of the great revolutions in our understanding of the mood disorders has been what causes them. Historically, they were seen as a result of the disfavour of the gods. The individual became depressed because of some misdemeanour. Today we know that all the mood disorders are in fact a consequence of neurobiological problems going on in the brain. There are brain chemical problems. We don't fully understand them yet. We've got a long way to go, but we know more than we did 10 or 15 years ago. And if I give you this talk in 5 years' time, I'll know a lot more. These disorders alter life. They alter the meaning for life, and they have a profound effect upon our total health, a point I talk about a little bit later. They alter the way they think. People who have a period of lowered mood, they tend to catastrophize things. They tend to see the worst of things. They tend to see the world in a state of gloom. And they also tend to emphasize their weaknesses. They fail to acknowledge their strengths and their achievements. They alter the way we feel. They feel sad, they feel guilty, they feel angry, they feel irritable, suspicious. Some have no feelings at all. And they alter the way we behave. Sometimes ignoring our own physical health, withdrawing from other people, no longer participating in enjoyable activities. They become our focus of life. For anybody with any type of mood disorder, their life deteriorates, changes, becomes compromised. There are various types of mood disorders, and I'm going to talk about the three main ones tonight. The word dysthymia, which is perhaps one you haven't heard of, it came to light as a term in the 1970s. And what it refers to is a chronic period of lowered mood. People are this way for years. The constantly grumpy person. Does anybody know a constantly grumpy person? Ah, right, I thought there'd be a few about that. Well, you know they probably have a mood disorder, and it's just they never know what happiness is, and they tend to always justify their mood. This is my personality. Well, unfortunately, they're wrong. They actually have a mood disorder. It affects more females than males, and unfortunately, it's chronic. But it can be treated provided the individual is prepared to accept that they have a mood disorder, and this just isn't part of their overall personality. Bipolar disorder. This is two moods in one. They have the manic phase. This is where the people feel invincible. They have a fast speech. They cannot think slowly. Their mind is racing. They undertake risky behaviors. I'll tell you of a story of a patient of mine one night at 10:30 rang me, said, "Guess where I am, Don?" "No, where am I?" "I'm on the top of a motor car driving 120 kilometres down Dandenong Road, and I'm on a roof rack with my mobile phone." That's being manic. And she really was. They take risky behaviours. They think they're invincible. And they often indulge themselves excessively in pleasurable activities. And they tend to make the wrong decisions. Bipolar disorder has the other component to it as well. This is the depressive mode. And one of the things about this condition is that people don't recognize that most people with bipolar illness actually are in the depressive mode rather than in the elevated mode. This is a condition where males and females equal themselves in terms of prevalence. One of the things about males, though, they generally start their illness off with a manic episode. Women often start themselves off with a depressive episode. The illness is invariably chronic, and as they get older, it becomes more difficult to manage. Major depression. This is the most common psychiatric illness we have, and is indeed the most common illness. It is indeed becoming more common, and tragically, it's occurring at a younger age. Look at this. This is an assessment of our psychiatric disorders, the most common ones, and prevalent studies. You can see that major depression is indeed the most common psychiatric disorder we have. But let us look at some of the other illnesses in this scale, like social anxiety disorder, like obsessive compulsive disorder. Yes, they're common, but most of those sufferers of those disorders also have a depressive disorder of some kind. Depression never occurs alone, as I'll emphasize as we go throughout the night. Yeah. Can we turn the lights down? I'll keep going, John. Now, over 330 million people worldwide suffer from major depression at this point in time. And 90% do not get adequate treatment. But more importantly to acknowledge, most people with these disorders are not diagnosed. Major depression in Australia. 1 in 4 women will experience depression sometime in their life. Sometime. And 1 in 6 men would experience depression sometime in their life. One of the things I mentioned before is depression is occurring younger and younger. And this time we know that up to 100,000 teenagers, children and teenagers, are in fact suffering from depression. And 1 million adults suffer from depression in this country at this point in time. It's a leading cause of disability and disablement for sufferers and for society. In the year 2000, the United Nations, World Health Organization, argued that of all the leading causes of disability in the world, major depression was the 4th. Of the 10 leading causes of disability in the world, there were 4 psychiatric illnesses: major depression, bipolar disorder, alcohol dependency, and also obsessive compulsive disorder. It's predicted in the year 2030 that major depression will be one of the major leading causes of disability after HIV and AIDS. That means it'll surpass heart disease and cancer. What is the cost to our Australian economy? It's surprising. $14.9 billion a year it costs this country to manage major depression. 6 million days of working days are lost. 12 million days of reduced productivity. This is overall economic costs. It doesn't ask or raise the question, what is indeed the personal cost? That we really don't know, but we can say very clearly that anybody with a mood disorder, whether it's a child, adolescent, person in midlife or older life, their life becomes indeed compromised. What does depression really mean? The word really means down. If you think about it, the body begins to fail, the mind begins to fail, and the brain begins to fail. When we're talking about major depression, we're not simply talking about just a normal period of sadness or just a period of lowered mood. Who in this room has had a period of lowered mood in their life? Everybody's hand should go up. That's normal. You're not depressed. You don't have to worry about it. But when we're talking about major depression, we're talking about a mood which is persistent and it is compromising. It begins to affect all aspects of life. But to actually make the diagnosis, we've got to have a number of other factors associated with it. We often have to have an impaired appetite. That is, people will eat too much, eat too little. I was watching as I walked around tonight who was eating too much. I was watching. Then sometimes they have craving for sweet things and junk food. I was observing the dessert eaters with interest. They lose interest in those activities which are pleasurable, and they lose interest in their hobbies. They become slower in movement, and on the opposite, they can also become quite agitated. They tend to develop somatic symptoms, lots of aches and pains, and headaches. So one of the most common causes of headaches is, in fact, depression. And they have sleep disturbance. Who has sleep disturbance here? I'll see you all later, okay? I hope it means you stay awake tonight. The sleep disturbance can come in all types of ways. People can have difficulty going after sleep. They wake up refreshed, their sleep is interrupted throughout the night, or they have early morning wakening. Sleep is just so vital for our health, and as I've emphasized to you before, it is so vital to the human brain. You must sleep properly. In fact, we now know that if your sleep cycle is shortened or in fact too long, your longevity will be affected. And people would lose energy. They lose the vitality to drive themselves through life. As I said, they lose interest. One of the reasons they lose interest in life is because of the lack of energy. Some people who get this major depression can't even get out of bed. It is just too much of an effort to do so. And their concentration becomes impaired. Their mind wanders. They become preoccupied with things of recovery and failure, and they think about all sorts of unpleasant things, catastrophes, always. They get feelings of guilt and remorse. They feel inadequate. They feel a failure. Why should I have this illness? And they get fearful and frightened. They wonder, am I ever going to come out of this illness? They become indecisive. They can't make decisions. They no longer can get pleasure. Anhedonia means the absence of pleasure. Inability to feel as well. Feel pleasure of any kind. They get anxious and panicky and want to run at times. They have nightmares, which are often concerned with themes of loss. They also tend to experience more pain. And they often think about death and the futility of life.